Commissions of inquiry cost the taxpayer billions. The current one into state capture will cost 230 million rand for the first 6 months, and it's expected to run for at least 2 years. Is it worth it? Michael Apple tackles that on It's Your Money. Michael, firstly, tell us a little bit about It's Your Money and the thinking behind it.
So just reinforcing the message that every single rand and cent that the government spends is not government's money, it's your money. It's literally your money. It's a mechanism through which to responsibly spend what is collected from the taxpayers. So as the public, we have a responsibility to hold government to account with what they do with every rand and cent. So there is on average about 50 billion rand that is lost every year, according to the Auditor General, in terms of fruitless, wasteful expenditure. And government needs to know that not only is the media watching, but the public must hold the government to account. That is the idea behind It's Your Money.
Now, we are going to look at the story that you discovered and unearthed, and I know that there were some weird facts or missing money stages.
Well, missing money in the sense that we see a commission of inquiry on television. They're judges, retired judges, high-powered advocates and lawyers. They're all being paid very well, but how well are they being paid? And who's paying them? We're paying them. That's the answer. Taxpayers are paying them. So for the first time personally that I've seen, I managed to get my hands on a breakdown of the costs of these commissions of inquiry, how much they spend on catering, venue hire. It's almost unimaginable that government would have to hire venues considering Public Works owns so many buildings. How much we spend on photocopiers, how much we spend on translators, transcribing things. So a nice breakdown of the costs involved in these commissions of inquiry and potentially what could we spend this money on better, considering that it's a widely held belief that commissions of inquiry have managed to achieve very little in this country. And
we're going to have to leave it there. As we were saying a little bit earlier, maybe we need another commission to investigate spending in commissions. Let's look at that package.
Let's jump straight into the numbers here, and these are just 4 of the recent commissions of inquiry. You've got the Marikana Commission, cost us 157 million rand. You've got the Seriti or Arms Procurement Commission, 137.2 million rand. The Fees Commission, that cost us just over 56 million rand. And lastly, the Claassen Board of Inquiry looking into Riah Phiyaga's fitness to hold office, just over 14 million rand. And lastly, what did these 4 commissions alone cost you, the taxpayer? 364.8 million rand.
Today marks the first day of the first session.
The much-awaited state capture inquiry began this week. The Commission has a budget of 230 million rand for the first 6 months. It could be extended to 24 months. Do the math. If that rate is maintained, it's going to cost 920 million rand.
The state capture inquiry is not going to be finished within a year. Definitely not.
It was recommended by Thuli Madonsela that this should take 6 months. It immediately extended that to 18 months, and now they're talking about 2 years. Is this going to go on for 6 years? In which case the public will have lost patience with it.
If so, raise your right hand and say, "Help me God."
No stranger to inquiries, Terry Crawford Brown is quite right. We'll likely be out of patience and undeniably out of pocket. These fact-finding mechanisms we love so much, they cost a pretty penny.
Well, let me say first we welcome the arms inquiry.
Mr. Lewis, the Seriti or Arms Deal Commission of Inquiry, 137 million rand of taxpayer money spent. Was it money well spent?
Well, it wasn't money well spent because of the way in which the inquiry was, or the commission was conducted. You know, on the other hand, the issue is a very important issue on which a hell of a lot more than 137 million rand was wasted. And, important to understand what happened and who perpetrated it.
The Seriti Commission is particularly notorious. It was meant to take 2 years and cost 40 million rand. It cost 137 million rand and went for 5 years, and said there was no evidence of corruption. It was all Terry's fantasy.
What corruption?
But surely for that amount of zeros, we should be getting some value for money.
Sadly, the experience both in South Africa and internationally is that they rarely do achieve anything. We've had the experience of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission in South Africa, which was highly acclaimed at the time, but it went on for 6 years. It was intended to be 18 months. It went on for 6 years, and the lawyers made hay while they could.
The answer would simply be no. You cannot justify the quantum of money that has been spent on each of these commissions.
Maninjwa looked at the breakdown of the costs for the 4 inquiries and simply isn't buying it.
If the purpose of the commission is for justice, do I believe the money is well spent? The answer would be no. Is this commission as a public relations exercise to give the appearance of accountability? Then I think it might be well spent.
There's not enough skepticism about commissions of inquiry. I think that I fear that the expectations of the South African population, I don't know where this quaint regard for and confidence in commissions of inquiry come from. I think they should be more skeptical and they should get their expectations in line with what commissions of inquiry can do and can't do.
So we smelled a rat from day one, and as I say, the Seriti Commission was a complete farce.
That commission must be established.
Our constitution empowers the president to appoint commissions of inquiry and set the terms of reference. What happens next?
They make those recommendations to the president. Very often the president who appointed them is really not interested in arriving at sharp, implementable conclusions. The president, many people don't understand, is not even forced to release a report of a commission of inquiry. He owns the commission of inquiry.
In reality, commissions of inquiry are simply a place to park a political hot potato.
In mid-2016, then-President Jacob Zuma appointed a commission to investigate the feasibility of fee-free tertiary education. We know from figures from the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development that over 56 million rand of taxpayer money was spent. Commissioners and evidence leaders got 38.5 million rand. 4.3 million rand was spent on transport and accommodation, and 650,000 rand was paid for the venue.
Is it justified? Can't community halls be used? Why do we need to have particular venues? You've got to think, remember Life Esidimeni was in Houghton. Did it need to be in Houghton? Couldn't have been in Soweto.
After all of that money was spent, Zuma overrules the recommendations of the multi-million rand commission.
The track record of President Zuma is appalling. You can also go back to the Marikana inquiry. We have not heard what kind of implementation strategies and policies he has put in place, although there were some recommended. It was the same thing on the issue of education. He just went against the recommendations.
Spending another 50+ million rand to answer a question that we already know to be the truth, which is university in this country is out of reach financially for the big majority of students.
Let's hypothetically say government never spent the 56 million on the fees commission and instead paid tuition fees for students. According to Wits University's 2018 fees, that money could have put 826 medical students through their first year. It could have paid the tuition of 1,143 psychology students, or even 1,414 journalism students. It could have paid for 2,504 full-time PhD students for a year.
Ordinary South African citizens, I think, could take even more of a stand, not only on this issue, but on demanding accountability from our government on a whole range of issues for which our money is being used.
Let's move on to the well-known Marikana Commission. It began in October 2012 and ended in November 2014. Commissioners, evidence leaders and investigators made over 100 million rand. Accommodation and travel alone cost over 25 million rand. And the catering costs? Talk about state capture.
It's an astronomical amount of money. 2 million rand just on food. How many people were eating? Did food go to waste? These are questions that must be asked. Did the caterer maybe overcharge? I don't know.
I asked Lewis if we're not just throwing good money after bad, but costs, he says, are inevitable.
Some of the estimates of what state capture has just gotten out of the country is something of the order of 100 billion rand, not to mention the rest of the havoc it's created. You know, 100 million to mount a commission of inquiries could be argued to be cheap at the price, you know. So one has got to be careful, and it, you know, the answer, as with most things, is not yes or no, but it depends.
Enough is enough. This is our money. You were elected to represent us. Let us now find out what you are doing with our money.
Running concurrently at the moment is the State Capture Commission as well as the SARS Commission of Inquiry. On top of this, President Ramaphosa recently announced a new Commission of Inquiry into the Public Investment Corporation. The public price tag is going to be immense. And remember, it's your money.
The Commission adjourns for the last time.